wonder if this whole Supreme Court thing is happening in divine timing for those of us trying to practice complaint free. If you've been on national or social media this week, you've witnessed a lot of complaining. A lot of complaining. And it's been fascinating to watch. And of course, I'm referring to the Roe v. Wade lawsuit that got overturned in the Supreme Court this week after 49 years. There was also another piece of legislation that happened in the government where Congress approved gun safety regulations. And are those two of the hottest topics, the most divisive topics that we have in our country? Yes. Wow, do we have an opportunity to complain and all of this stuff going on? No matter which side of this you're on, right? The gun restrictions are too stringent, and they're going to be taking away future freedoms, and it's just the start. Or hallelujah, it didn't go far enough. Or thank goodness this has finally been reversed. Or oh my gosh, it's an erosion of freedom. There are two sides to every story, are there not? Yeah. My talk today is called Conscious Incompetence. Conscious Incompetence. And that refers to, it's a second stage of learning and whatever we're learning. If you've learned a new language or anything that we've learned, we go through phases. The first phase was last week in our process, and that was we weren't even aware, you didn't know what I was going to do. And I showed up and said, hey, we're going to do complaint free together for 21 days, consecutive days. We're not going to complain. And so now we're conscious of it, right? And throughout this week, we've been practicing. We've been practicing. So stage 2 of learning is where we're aware of it, but we're not proficient at it yet. We're not proficient at it yet, right? But we're aware. So today we're going to understand what this conscious incompetence is, and we're going to see if there are some ways that we can move through this stage gracefully to finally get to success in 21 consecutive days of not complaining. Now remember, complaining is what? It is when we complain, criticize or blame, gossip, or speak sarcastically, right? Using sarcasm. Those are the way, and gossip, yes, and gossip, those are the ways that we can complain. So many of us this week noticed that maybe we complain. We may have noticed some of those things, and we may have turned our bracelets a few times. Yes, as we realized it. Yes, I did. But we noticed it, and I don't know about you, but I couldn't stop it sometimes. It would just come out. It's like, oh my gosh, I did it again, day one. Oh my gosh, I did it again, day one. Conscious incompetence. If you've ever upgraded a computer system, I haven't gone to 11 yet, but I think was it 8 that we went from 8 to 10? Yeah, from 8 to 10. I don't know if you remember doing that on Windows if you use that product. Everything looked different. The screen was different. The colors were different. The alignment was different. The programs worked differently. Favorites were in different places. The menu was different. We were conscious that the change had happened. We knew. But I certainly wasn't competent at it at the beginning. I wanted to do it the old way, and it frustrated me that I couldn't do it the old way, that I had to do the new way that Excel was insisting that I use it. That's the incompetence piece of it, and we have to slow down. We have to pay closer attention, right, to making those changes in our habits. According to Will Bowen, the author of our book of the month, A Complaint-Free World, he says, if you're not feeling frustrated at this stage, or if you find yourself on day 8 today, it's possible that you may be missing some of your complaints, gossip, criticism, blame, or sarcasm. Or perhaps we're not recognizing when we're griping. Remember, gripe last week was the acronym that we used for the 5 reasons that we complain. And it's that we are complaining to get attention. We are complaining to remove responsibility. We're complaining to inspire or envy. We're complaining for power, or we're complaining for excuses to excuse our poor performance. Those are the 5 reasons that we complain. Now, I don't know about you, but I had the opportunity to experience some of that this week. And one of them was quite interesting. I'm watching someone perform a task, and I saw a better way. And I asked myself, I was able to pause and say, Self, how would you feel in this moment if you were at the same process? If someone jumped in and said, Hey, look over here, do it this way. What about this? What about that? Move here and do it. No. What do you? And I went, I don't think I'd appreciate that very much. So I kept quiet and I just watched as it unfolded. Someone else came along who wasn't wearing a bracelet, and said, "Oh, you know what? Let me help you. Let me help you. Look, if you move this and you move that and you put this over here, that'll work out so much better. And then if you do this and do this and do this." And I was listening to this, and it was so interesting to hear the positive way in which this was offered, and yet the underlying criticism of the way the other person was doing it to start. It was fascinating to actually hear that in the conversation. It was a wonderful learning experience of how this unfolds. And each one of these gripes, as the acronym goes, unfolds in different ways. We use complaining and criticizing and blame and so forth for those different reasons. So the process is becoming more mindful, isn't it? To be able to catch ourselves and teach ourselves, if you will, competence in not complaining, in being more mindful, in being more present and aware in the moment, of being able to catch ourselves more when we are at that moment of about to do something for power, or do something to remove responsibility, or do something for envy or inspiration, to become the expert in the room because we know more, right? We know more. Paying attention to that, paying attention to our words and our conversations. And as we started out with the overturning of the Supreme Court, you may wonder, well, then how, if I can't complain about this stuff, how do I even talk about it? How do I have a conversation about it? How do I have a discussion about my opinion? I just have to be quiet. I can't say anything. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you have things on your heart, we need to express those feelings and those opinions. But what we're suggesting in this idea of complaint free is being more aware of those and working towards solutions and working towards healing and working towards the higher good, as opposed to tearing things down. So, what is the difference in statements and complaints? What is the difference in statements and complaints? The words can be exactly the same, can't they? The words can be exactly the same in a statement and a complaint. I want to go to our book and let Will tell us the difference in complaint and statement. He says, you may question whether what you say is a complaint or a statement of fact. Remember, the difference between a complaint and a statement of fact is the energy you put into your comment. According to Dr. Robin Kowalski, Whether or not the particular statement reflects a complaint depends on whether the speaker is experiencing an internal dissatisfaction. The words in a complaint and non-complaint could be identical. What distinguishes the two is your meaning, your energy behind them. Your meaning and your energy behind them. Are we having the conversation to make them wrong? Are we having the conversation to make us feel better and somebody else feel worse? Why are we having the conversation? He goes on to talk about in this idea of not complaining and statements versus complaints is to recognize that we're ceasing to rail against the things that which we cannot change, or I might add things that are outside of our sphere of influence, like the weather. Anybody complain about the weather? Yeah, it's hot, it's humid. Can we do anything about it? Why do we complain? Why do we add that energy of complaint and negativity to things we cannot change? Now, I'm not saying that our voices aren't heard in the political realm. They are, of course, we know that, and we have responsibility for that. But be aware of how you're doing that and what you're saying and the energy and the emotion that you have. Anybody heard of affirmative prayer? Anybody heard of affirmative prayer? What is one of the things we tell you teach you in affirmative prayer? It is the belief and the emotion back of our prayers that make them powerful, right? So the same is true of complaining. If we are complaining and we have that emotion and belief behind it that is coming out, we're manifesting, right? We are directing the universal law of our lives of what we want. And when it's a complaint and it's not something that we want, we're complaining about what is, what are we going to get? More of what is, exactly. More of what is. So it's important to remember this as we are thinking about complaining or ceasing to complain. In the book, Will tells a story about two construction workers. If you're in the book study, you've probably read this already. Two construction workers, they meet up for lunch, and one of them opens his lunchbox up. And he pulls out his sandwich and he goes, "Ugh, meatloaf sandwich. I hate meatloaf." And the other guy just kind of looks at him. And the next day they get together for lunch again. The guy opens his lunchbox up and he goes, "Ah, meatloaf sandwich. I hate meatloaf sandwiches." The other guy looks at him. He's like, "Okay." Third day, the guy opens up his lunchbox, pulls out a meatloaf sandwich. He's livid. "I can't believe it. Meatloaf sandwich every single day. This is horrible. Is it ever going to change?" And the guy goes, "Buddy, why don't you ask your wife to make you something different?" And he says, "I make my own lunch." And don't we all make our own lunches? We make our own lunches. What are we putting in our lunch box every day? What's the daily bread that we're putting in there that we then complain about throughout the day? Are we putting in there lack and limitation? Are we putting in there complaints? Are we putting in there unworthiness? What are we packing every day into our world that we are possibly then complaining about? But we pack our own lunch, right? Through our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings. I know that most of us in this room, I know this to be true, consider ourselves very positive people. We're science minders, right? We understand this teaching. So this week may have been enlightening. I know many of us went, "Piece of cake, 21 days, easy peasy, got a bracelet, I'm going to wear it the same arm the whole time, so not going to happen," right? Want to do it right. Yeah. So it may have been an enlightening week for us as we caught ourselves in complaint, criticize, blame, gossip, sarcasm. I made it till Tuesday morning, from Sunday to Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, traffic got me. Tuesday afternoon, the office got me. I was doing pretty good until Friday afternoon. Then this lady in the parking lot, traffic got me. What were your gotchas? What were your gotchas? We're talking about the power of our word and complaining, the power of prayer, the power of our word. Did you know that complaining blocks abundance, blocks the flow of abundance in your life? Yeah, it's kind of like this rock. Imagine that it's this Arizona monsoon. We had a little rain activity this week, and a little monsoon's trying to come in. Fingers crossed, right? And imagine there's a river. Can you imagine a river with water in it? And a boulder falls off the cliff and just plunges into the water below and does this. Well, what's the water do? Just goes around it, right? Just goes around it. And the same is true when we complain in our lives. The complaint is like the boulder. The universe goes around, go around. Because on the one hand, we're affirming what it is that we desire to have in our lives. And on the other hand, we plunk a boulder down in the middle of it by complaining, and the universe goes, well, which is it? Is it this or is it that? Which word has more power? Which word you're speaking has more power? You're sending me conflicting signals, and I don't know what to do. I'm going to go around. I'm going to go around. So don't let complaining cut you off from the flow of abundance in your life. In the Bible, it says, by our words we are justified, and by our words we are condemned. That teaching is in the Old Testament and the New Testament both. And it's kind of like the double-edged sword, the power of our word. And it's ancient teaching that's teaching us that, in fact, our word does have power. And it can be either way, and we get to choose which way it's going to be. Ernest Holmes goes on to comment on this phrase, and he says, our word has the exact amount of power that we put into it. This does not mean power through effort or strain, but power through absolute conviction or faith. What are you convinced of, and what do you have faith in? What are you convinced of, and what do you have faith in? Where are you focusing your energy? Are you focusing your energy in the conditions? Or are you focusing your energy into one cause, the infinite cause? Another word that we need to keep an eye on as we move through this process is failure. Failure. Some of us feel like maybe we failed at this exercise. I know I wanted to do it right. I wanted to have 21 consecutive days back to back and starting with the first week and show up here in day 8. And it was hard that first time to go, yeah, that really was a complaint. Switch your bracelet. Right? It was hard that first time. Day 1. Day 1. Again. But it got easier as I went through the week to go, I did it again. Switch the bracelet. And to recognize what was happening and to become a little more mindful. So our little failures during the day when we're switching our bracelets are not failures. They're successes. Because in that moment, when we pause and we acknowledge what has happened, we're building that neural pathway of the new habit and the new way of being. We're successful in that moment. So instead of thinking, oh gosh, I failed, I'm back on day 1, let's think, oh my gosh, I've succeeded in creating yet another neural pathway for myself of change. It was Winston Churchill that said success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Are we still enthusiastic about our bracelets? In our book discussion and in my personal experiences, I have related the two big fouls that I have heard so far are traffic and work environment. Okay, traffic and work environment. And as I said, both got me this week. I am on day 3. Yay. It's early yet, but I'm on day 3. Where are you? I'd love to see a show of hands of those of you that are participating. What day are you on? Ooh, all right. Lovely, lovely, lovely. All right. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Keep going. I promise it gets easier as we go along, as you're building those neural pathways. It will become habit. It will become habit. But, it takes as long as it takes, doesn't it? It's persistence, patience, and commitment. And I invite you to stay committed with me. I need your support. I've been getting daily texts from Penny telling each other what days we're on. It helps, believe it or not. So if you don't have a text buddy, sign up with somebody and correspond during the week on what day you're on, because it really does help. All right. So let's move into our practicing the principles this morning. Remember, Mindful Monday comes out every Monday morning, and it is a little newsletter that is a summary of today's talk. It gives you the details of our practicing the principles, the quotes, and so forth from the talk. You can sign up in the lobby if you're here in the room, and folks online, you can send me an email, and we'll get you signed up and put on the list there also. All right, number 1, don't park your camper in failure. Now, many times we will hit failure. It's easy, right? Oh, God, this bracelet is ugly. It's the wrong color. I don't like it. It doesn't fit. It drives me nuts, and I don't like this game anymore. Put it in the drawer. It's easy to quit, isn't it? It's easy to quit. And this week would be an easy week to quit. It's too hard. I don't want to do this. I don't want to pay so much attention. It's exhausting, right? And we can park our camper in that failure of not being 100% successful in the moment. Anybody gotten new golf clubs ever that plays golf? Yeah, it's not easy that first few rounds because you're not familiar with the clubs, right? You got to learn to use the new clubs. Or anything new that we're doing, we have to stick with it long enough for it to become, for us to become competent at it. So I'm going to invite us this week to keep going and to set a very conscious intention each morning. Each morning, I am going to be complaint free today, this day, not 21 days, this day. Carve it down to just today. And then repeat an affirmation for yourself. Create an affirmation. It could be, I release the need to complain. If you need a release statement, I release the need to complain. Or perhaps I'm curious and compassionate. Because if I'm being curious and compassionate with everybody that I meet, I'm probably not going to complain much, am I? I'll be asking questions. I'm going to be compassionate to what's happening rather than complaining. Or I choose kindness. If I'm choosing kindness in all of my interactions with myself and others, I'm not going to complain, right? Yeah. Also, you can set an alarm every 3 hours and check in with yourself. 3 hours goes by. Have I complained? I don't think I did. Yay! It's a little success mechanism, right? I haven't complained. Check in. Did you stop yourself? Were you aware of about to complain and stopped yourself? Make your observations, set your alarm again and start over 3-hour blocks and see how you're doing throughout your day. And then in the evening, kind of summarize. If you complained, where did you complain? Where are your hot spots? Mine are traffic. I realize that minor traffic. The office also, I've got to pay attention and be more present there as well. Where are your spots that you need to be more present to? And that little summary in the evenings and that check-in throughout the day will help you to get there. Number 2 is pack a better lunch. Pack a better lunch. Complaining blocks the flow of good in our lives. And just like the guy that kept packing his own meatloaf sandwich that he didn't like, we can sometimes do that. We can do that sometimes. But if we set this intention every day to be complaint free, we're packing a better lunch, aren't we? We're starting out with a better lunch to begin with. So this week, every time you complain, switch your bracelet and say an affirmation to reaffirm the direction of the law in your life. Because when we complain, we divert it, right? So we have to redirect with a conscious statement at that time to redirect that complaint that we just had. So think about that and be present to that as part of your process. An example of that would be if you're grumping at, does anybody else have driver issues or is it just me? It's all me. It's all me with traffic. Yeah, okay. It's just the ministers that have trouble with traffic. So we're grumping at another driver. Switch the bracelet and affirm, I am in the perfect right place at the perfect right time to assure my complete and total safety. Because what usually is happening, they've scared us, right? Both of the ones with me this week, I realized I almost hit them because they were doing non-professional driving things. And so that it scared me that I came so close to colliding with another vehicle because of their way of driving. So I'm in the perfect right place to assure my complete safety, right? That little affirmation will help us attract to us only the good drivers, right? Only the good drivers. Another one is all drivers I encounter today are safe and courteous, including me. Including me. So those types of affirmations, whatever you find that your the item area is, create an affirmation for yourself to help you make it through those times. Number 3 is don't look for loopholes. Don't look for loopholes. There have been a lot of questions that ask, can I say this? Can I say that? And if you have to ask that question, likely the answer is only if you want to change your bracelet and go back to day 1, right? If you have to ask, it's likely that it's a complaint. Accept the challenge for what it is. Check in with yourself. This is a personal experience, a personal transformation. What are your feelings? What are your emotions? What's behind what you're thinking about? Can I say this? Is it a statement with no energy behind it, or is it a complaint? Check in with yourself. Ask yourself, why do I need to say this? That was helpful to me in keeping my mouth shut with the girl working on the project. Why do I need to say this? I don't. Is it going to be beneficial to the other person, either in front of me or in consciousness? Right? We're all one. Is there a whine in the statement? Is there a whine in the statement? Why me? Why does this always happen to me? Is there negative energy, righteousness, judgment, attention seeking, blame? Icky stuff. If so, switch your bracelet. And remember, it's not about the competition. It's not a competition. And there's no shame in day 1. All right. I'll close today with a quote from Ernest Holmes. He says, by taking total responsibility for our life, by giving up all blame and all judgment, by releasing the past and forgiving all people who are or who have been in our life, including ourselves, we are now ready to experience dominion and personal freedom. So Ernest was on the right track with this complaint-free stuff a long time ago, wasn't he? As we prepare for July and celebrating our freedom in America, let's begin with our personal freedom as we become complaint-free together. Would you join me for prayer? Just immersing ourselves into the divine presence as we recognize that it is all around us. It is in us and through us, as us. God is all. God is all. It is all abundance. It is all gratitude and joy and kindness and peace and harmony and balance. It is all love, unconditioned and unconditional. And all of that is here, present in, through, and as me, and in, through, and as each one of us as expressions of it. We are the love that God is. We are the abundance that God is. We are the grace that God is. And so, as we unite in this knowingness of our oneness, our wholeness, and our unity with all that is, I speak my word for and about us this day, knowing, claiming, and accepting the competence that we each experience and express of becoming complaint free, of living a complaint free life, as we move into kindness and compassion, as we move into gratitude and grace, recognizing that that experience is an expression of our wholeness, of our oneness, and of our unity with each other. I know this day for any of us that have anything on our heart that we seek prayer around, that as we lift that into this room, into this consciousness of this prayer, that each of us holds the light for each other. Knowing that when I can't see the light, I know that others can see it for me and hold me in that, and that we hold each other in that. So I know that whatever needs to be healed, is revealed with great clarity and ease. That abundance flows in love and joy and peace and finance and creative expression. And that all the boulders are washed away, and that flow in our life is just moving fluidly downstream through us and as us into the fullest expression of the life that we have designed for ourselves. And how grateful I am for this knowing. Grateful for this truth, grateful for the knowing, grateful for the manifestation of the prayer. As I release it into law, as I release it into the activity of mind, knowing that it is done and it is so, there's nothing else for us to do except accept it. And we do so by affirming. And so it is.